Good evening, my friends. This is the Grim Flayer. Hope you're all doing very well tonight. Bringing you the fire tonight, bringing you some mono red prowess gameplay. We're going to light them up, and I love this deck. I've been absolutely destroying people with it, even though I am a BGX mid-range main. Basically always will be. Will always love that archetype. Meta feels a little bit hostile to mid-range, and Prowess has been my secondary deck of choice for a little while now, a couple months, and my results on it have been utterly fantastic, despite me not having expertise with the deck yet necessarily. So, I'm actually going to upload 2 leagues for you. The first one that you're seeing right now uses the list that I have been using. So this was my 4th maybe run out with this same exact list. I don't think we made any changes. You can see my previous Mono Red Prowess leagues on this channel for a more in-depth exploration of the specific card choices, but basically there are 2 things that set my list apart from what most people are doing. Number 1 is this card, Forked Bolt. I don't see this in almost any lists. Most people play Burst Lightning, so few people play Firebolt, few people are starting to play Wild Slash, and others eschew the shock slot altogether in favor of other things. I am like the only one I've seen anytime recently with Forked Bolt in my list, and I am telling you guys, it continues to overperform for me. I kind of expected this to be like, okay, maybe high ceiling, low floor, maybe I'll play with it enough, get enough experience with the deck that the low floor is going to rear its ugly head too many times and I'll go to Burst Lightning or I'll go to whatever else, but Forked Bolt continues to be a really good way to control the board while advancing the clock, a really good way to enable early light up the stages, and a really good way just to spread our damage out as efficiently as possible. And I have loved it, and I think that this league and the next league will show us some really good use cases for Forked Bolt. So, anyway, guys, we are going to get into a league of Mono Red Prowess with this deck. It is going to be in replay form. Now, if you want to see more Mono Red Prowess content and or live recorded Mono Red Prowess content, please let me know. You know, I have to follow the metrics, and right now the metrics say that mid-range content is most popular, Mono Red Prowess not as much. Therefore, Prowess has been what I've kind of been playing off camera, you know, to just blow off steam, to change the pace a little bit from the usual grindy decks. So, therefore, I'm not doing as much live content with it right now. But if you want to see more live Prowess content, give me the likes, give me the feedback, give me the view count, and I will be happy to bring it to you because I love, love, love this deck. What else? We have new audio. If you didn't see my Christmas message video, you will not have heard me say this, but hopefully you can tell that the audio quality on this channel is improved. I do have a new microphone, still learning the ins and outs of it, the optimal settings, but for now, just kind of right out of the box, I think it's a pretty noticeable upgrade. You'll have to let me know about that, though, guys. And let's get right into our league, just thanking, as always, the Patreon supporters who make this content possible, and Brian Palmer, the channel's newest sponsor. Another thing I announced in the Christmas message video, BrianPalmerArt.com. He does excellent tokens, playmats, and altars, commissions, whatever you need. Check him out, BrianPalmerArt.com, link in the description below, and if you use the discount code GrimFlayerMTG, which is also down below in the description, you get 10% off your order and you help support the channel. So thank you, Brian. Thanks in advance to anyone who decides to avail themselves of that, and let's light them up. Let's play some Mono Red Prowess, starting right now. Okay, so we are on the draw here with a perfectly acceptable hand. This has got 2 lands, an early threat, 3 spells to fuel it, and Bedlam Reveler to top it all off. This is kind of the archetypal hand that you like to see. Opponent goes turn 1 Temple Guard and Giver of Runes, so Giver is usually a harbinger of shenanigans to come, so I did decide to go ahead and bolt it. We do, having drawn light up the stage, we have a very good turn 2 anyway of Swifty and attack, then light up second main, We can even control the board with Lightning Bolt that way if they play another must-kill threat, so I was pretty comfortable taking the turn off of our clock to do that. Opponent confirms that they are on Infect, which is one of the things you can expect off turn 1 Temple Garden into Giver with that Inkmoth Nexus, but they don't have another play as of yet. We draw Forked Bolt, good card in the matchup, so time for the Swifty, and we're going to go ahead and attack. Definitely want to do it this way because we do have the Bolt in case they get too frisky with like Animate, Mute, Inkmoth, and then try to pump it with Mutagenic. Really want to hold up our instants in this regard, but also, even if we don't need to, which we didn't here, we get to do the aforementioned plan of light up the stage. We light up into another light up and Bedlam Reveler. Stuff's a little bit slow for our tastes here, but with another Reveler in hand, at least we get a dead draw out of the way with a second Rev, right? So, opponent firing up Inkmoth, chipping in for 1, and then passing. So, it looks like our opponent is a little bit stuck for things to do, and they are just trying to race us. They don't appear to have much interaction or good ways to hang back, so they just kind of turned it sideways, and therefore we're going to kind of reciprocate with Lava Spike into light up the stage. This is getting us a ton of damage right out of the gates and trying to hit our third land drop, which we have successfully done. And then from there, I like Warlord's Fury here because we don't have lethal anyway, and we keep as much board control and as much damage in the back pocket as possible while ensuring our curve out. Like, when you can cantrip, you should usually do it with this deck. Just helps subsequent turns be more efficient. And that was a very efficient turn. Opponent finds another Giver of Runes. Well, that's not something we care terribly much about, but we'll play our 4th land. Light Up has really helped ensure us curve out here. Forked Bolt clears the way. And then we're going to Forked Bolt upstairs as well, just to get the more prowess triggers, more damage across. We continue living the dream with Light Up the stage. We've got Lava Dart, we've got Lightning Bolt. We can use either one. Doesn't really matter what we do because we just have them. If we really wanted to be safe, we could just attack first, see what if they animate Inkmoth, whatever, but with them only representing one colorless mana, there's really nothing they can have, and the opponent, I believe, from memory, was kind of F6ing here anyway, so pretty strong display, you gotta say. The opponent didn't have a whole lot going on, but even if they had, maybe we have to slow down our clock by a turn to take care of their board presence a little bit more than we did, but you can see against Infect, we have the speed to race them, and we have the ability to ruthlessly control their boards. So the opponent really has to have all kinds of awesome stuff to keep up with us, and they didn't. So we turn for them on the draw while taking care of a couple creatures along the way. You gotta love it. Okay, so veteran viewers of the channel will know that when I'm doing a green-black X replay, sometimes I go in depth with the sideboard explanations. Number one, I don't have the expertise with Prowess that I do with BGX, so like my deep tech explanations are not there. They're not as valid, frankly, and they're also not as necessary because sideboarding is a little bit more straightforward with this deck. So let me know what you think about the new sideboarding protocol with Prowess replays, but basically, instead of cutting to the other screen, I'm just going to show you that here and then go right on with the gameplay. We got 2 Lava Spikes, 1 Light Up the Stage, and 1 Bedlam Reveler that have come out. This is because even though we want to race, we do want to sacrifice a little bit of value for better ways to control the board, basically. And all of our usual stuff like Lightning Bolt, Lava Dart, Fork Bolt controls the board really well. We bring in 3 Abrades and a Dismember for even more ways to lock down that board, make sure they don't get going against us. So that's the sideboarding that I did here. And opponent will keep 7 and go turn 1 Dryad Arbor. So we have drawn Monastery Swiftspear, which is a really good draw because that gives us the luxury of bolting Dryad Arbor turn 1 and still, in theory, having creature into damage into light up for turn 2. And that's exactly what we do. You know, bolting their Dryad Arbor, it's just a little bit too good to pass up for me, right? So anyway, we draw a Forked Bolt. The opponent is stuck on a 1-lander. Well, no, sorry, they're not necessarily. We bolted their land, right? So, but they do have a Noble Hierarch. Now, I did mention the line of Swifty into light up, and I think that would have been valid, but Forked Bolt, this is just a great example of why I love this card. Controlling their board, killing their mana dork, so good at slowing them down, and we still tag them for 1 and enable light up the stage. So even though we're putting off our creatures a little bit this way, this is still a great way. We're slowing them down more than we're slowing ourselves down, let's put it that way, right? And we have more gas and more gas and more gas in the tank, whereas they might be out of creatures. So in any case, that's why we sequence the way we do. Back to us, 3rd land drop. Just playing our cards from exile, spike them. Then we're going to light them up, so this way we're kind of striking a balance between getting most value out of our available plays, including the exiled ones that will go away soon, and advancing the clock. Obviously, playing another Swifty first would have been nice, but I kind of like just keeping the light up the stage chain going, and you can see why. You know, this just, again, ensures our curve out so well. Hitting those land drops, hitting more gasoline, you got to love it. So, opponent, once again, trying to race us, this time a little bit more effectively. They animate and then they cast a scale up, and we take 6 Infect right here. That's a little bit scary, and Inkmoth Nexus can definitely be one of their harder cards for us to interact with. However, we have drawn a Manamorphose right off the top. That is one of our very best draws. It means we are pretty easily going to put lethal together here, you have to imagine. So we go Swifty, into Manamorphose, into Lava Dart. So if there is any doubt, we no longer have that doubt looming. Lava Dart, so good when you've got uncontested creatures, right? So we dart them, we light it up, we see even more gas, but we don't need it. We'll cantrip with a Crash Through. That in and of itself is lethal, but we'll just go for the overkill with Lava Dart. So we put them to 9, then we're swinging for 12. Looks like lethal to me. So back-to-back turn 4 kills while controlling the board both times. Granted, we had pretty great curve outs too. You know, there certainly are curve outs that kind of sputter and die a little bit against Infect, but so many of our cards are so effective against them that I think you almost have to flood or mulligan and be mono-screwed to have a real likelihood of dropping this series, right? But so they won't always be this smooth, but this one sure was. I think it's a real favorable matchup overall, and at the time of this recording, I believe Infect is number 3 on MTG Goldfish, and the reason why Infect is so great is partially because they've got the Oko and Veil of Summer plan to blow out the interaction of the decks that I love to play, the green-black X decks, specifically Veil of Summer. I'm seeing a lot of decks play straight for a Veil right now. Really miserable, turning a favorable matchup from BGX into one that's a lot dicier or a lot swingier. Like, they can still just get hosed by Plague Engineer, things like this, but our more traditional interaction can sometimes get blown out by Veil pretty hard, but Veil of Summer does not avail them, no pun intended, against Lava Darts and Forked Bolts and Prowess threats. So, love to beat Infect like that. Great way to start the league. Let's go on to round 2. And here we are, my friends, on the draw once again for round 2, but once again with a nice balanced hand. The Kiln Fiend opener, as opposed to the Swiftspear or Soul-Scar opener, is a little higher variance. It might have a quicker Goldfish kill, but it's obviously a little bit more vulnerable to disruption and so forth. But we have drawn a Soul-Scar anyway, so good enough turn 1 play for me, that's for sure. That's the only thing this lacked, is like an ideal turn 1 play. Opponent has gone Plains into Aether Vial, then tapped Breeding Pool and passed, so it's some kind of a Bant Aether Vial deck. Not the most common sight in the world, admittedly, so we go ahead and swing with Soul-Scar. This gives us the most options. From here we can light up, we could have bolted or darted any 1-drop they had to Vial in. And those are still viable options, specifically lighting up is a viable option second main, but it's also viable to play the Kiln Fiend and have 2 threats down, more resilient to interaction, and also lining up a really strong turn this upcoming turn, depending on what the opponent does, of course. So they make their 3rd land drop, then they're going to cast a Deputy of Detention. Exiling Kiln Fiend, Vial is on 2, then it's a pass. So, interesting options here, but we did open with another Lightning Bolt for our draw. So, therefore, I feel pretty comfortable just trying to main phase bolt this, see if it resolves, and taking it from there. So it does, then we'll attack. I like attacking here as kind of a hedge, you know, we could Lava Dart and then light up main phase for potentially more damage, but I don't really know what they're up to. Vial's on 2, so I like just holding up my instants instead and playing a little safer, playing a little slower. And we do get to connect for 2 because we have already bolted. So, second main light up the stage. We're taking it again a little bit more slowly, but we're rewarded for that. Light up hits a creature, so we get to play that, and we're now super, super wide for next turn with a Manamorphose waiting in the wings, plus all of our usual guess. Pretty cool stuff. So opponent will begin their turn by taking Vial to 3 and then vialing in Eternal Witness. Interestingly, buying back a land rather than Deputy of Detention. So buying back Deputy is obviously pretty live. This makes me a little bit concerned. They're on 4 lands. What can they really be representing on 4? Well, I don't know. I really don't know. So we'll make our land drop, test the waters a little bit here with Manamorphose, and Manamorphose will get forced by Force of Negation pitching Time Warp. So this appears to be Bant turns, maybe Bant Eternal Command. I don't really know what goes into it. The presence of Ether Vial and Eternal Witness makes me think of more like an Eternal Command style deck that tries to loop Eternal Witness. Cryptic Command uses Ether Vial to cheat on mana to really grind the opponent out. The presence of Time Warp might be kind of a top-end kind of win condition for the deck, or it might be more of a central focus. Either way, we're kind of in brew territory, not like an established high-tier deck. So to that end, instead of trying to dart the Witness and then going for lethal, the opponent does still have 4 mana untapped. I decided to play it a little bit more cagey. We just go for the Warlord's Fury and then the attack. We do give them the blocking opportunity here, but again, I don't really want to shove all in because I don't know what I'm against. I don't know if I'm expecting some kind of sweeper effect or what, some other way to punish us for going all in. So I decided to just kind of hedge the bets, get a respectable amount of damage through, have overwhelming amounts of lethal in hand, and end-step opponent will go for Eladamri's Call, getting Eternal Witness. So clearly the Witness value plan is central to whatever the other components of their plan are. They're going to vial in Witness. Witness buys back yet another land, so they're trying to hit those land drops. And I was afraid a little bit of a Time Warp here, because they were seemingly pretty focused on getting to that 5th land, but instead there is going to be a Soulherder in our future. So I haven't seen Bant Soulherder lately. I saw it a lot right when it became legal, when the Soulherder itself was printed and a couple other things were printed to make it viable. Haven't really seen it since then, so I don't know if Time Warp is meta and Force of Negation. Not from what I know, but I could be wrong. In any case, Lava Darting Soulherder before the end step is live, so we can get that trigger. Get it before it triggers, rather, but the opponent only has 1 card in hand, so we're not at risk of getting forced, and we have more than lethal next turn with Dart and Bolt in hand. Doesn't really matter what we do, so we can kill the Witness in response to the trigger, or we could have just killed the Soulherder before the end step. Literally doesn't matter, there's nothing they can have, they are overwhelmingly dead. So the opponent has an interesting brew going on here. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, as you can tell, but, if they're trying to block with Eternal Witnesses, which is not only slow but also an X1, they might be in trouble against a deck like ours. If they're trying to, loop Time Warps, also very slow against what we're up to. But anyway, that's just the impressions from Game 1. It's also worth noting that Soulherder, another slow and very vulnerable value card relative to our stuff, right? But anyway, that's just Game 1. Without really knowing what we were up against, we kind of waltzed our way to a victory there, but you don't know necessarily how close they were to taking over. So let's check out Game 2, see how that goes for us. Alright, my friends, sideboarding here is pretty similar to how we sideboarded against Infect, in that we brought in the Dismember and the 3 Abrades, because there are a lot of creatures to kill. It's pretty important to control the board, as far as I can tell. The difference is we side a little bit more out of our 1-drops, and we keep our grindy stuff around, because with Witnesses and other control or mid-range style pieces, we might need all of our Revelers and all of our light up the stages to compete. So that's how we sided. Our opening hand here on the draw for Game 2 is pretty good. We just need the second land and it'll be great. So Opponent will kick things off with an Ether Vial, and we hit the second land right away. Really nice to be so good at the game, right? When we just top deck the second land, we're off to the races. Opponent's got some awkward mana here going on, and this is a great time to Abrade. So abrading the Ether Vial and attacking for 2 is a perfectly legitimate thing here. Again, controlling the board, getting a little bit of extra damage. This slows the opponent down more than it slows us down, right? So that's the idea anyway. Opponent making their land drops, though, and it's everybody's favorite card of the moment, Oko, Thief of Crowns, on curve, on the play. In theory, this should be very good against any kind of red deck wins deck, but the big secret about Prowess is that life gain effects, including value-oriented ones like Oko, are really not that hard to beat overall. Now, you gotta respect it, and if the opponent is otherwise competitive, they can certainly break the symmetry, but certainly not an I-win button by any means against us. So we begin by casting a Forked Bolt. If you have reason to believe that all your spells are going to resolve, then there's a certain sequence where you want to maximize the damage you're dealing to the opponent while dealing exactly lethal to Oko between Prowess triggers and attacks, and Forked Bolt can be really useful there for getting every point of damage out of your turn. However, we don't really know if everything's going to resolve because the opponent is on Force of Negation, and sure enough, they will pitch Coiling Oracle to the Force to stop Lightning Bolt, but we do have Forked Bolt going to the face and conveniently getting us exactly 4 damage from the Soul-Scar to finish Oko off. So we battle through Oko pretty reasonably. Opponent's got another Ether Vial, not that big a deal here. We go Soul-Scar and attack for 1. We're a little bit out of gas right now, a little bit with a couple awkward cards in hand. Reveler uncastable, Dismember reactive, and the opponent will Eladamri's Call on the end step for Eternal Witness, starting to get that value train going. And they've got the Vial ticking back up, they've got a food token, so the opponent has done some work towards stabilizing. Here's a little bit more work done by Knight of Autumn gaining 4 life. And then they will pass the turn. So on the end step, Dismember is a way to be mana efficient while also keeping our mana around, because we do need to cast Bedlam Reveler. So one way to get closer to Reveler is to hope to naturally top deck gas while keeping our land drops. Another way is to just do this, cash in a Fiery Islet. I think that's pretty feasible there. And we're pretty rewarded for it because we find another land to replace the one we traded in, and we find a Swifty, and we also get to have a pretty good turn dismembering, of course, on our turn for maximum prowess value, and here comes 6 damage, making up the lost ground here from the life gain effects. Opponent's turn, they vial in an Ice Fang, Coatl, make the 4th land drop, E-Witness in hand, but they're slow rolling it. Pretty interesting. Makes me think they want to eventually buy back the Coatl. So all kinds of value from the opponent doing that. And I really don't want to attack into the Coatl, so I do cash in a land trying to find a Lava Dart or a Forked Bolt. We don't find it, so we do find Light Up the Stage. That is more than enough incentive for me to shove here. Opponent's other card in hand that was unknown is another Eladamri's Call, getting another Ice Fang. Very, very punishing here for us. They're trading up in terms of value. Pretty annoying, but again, these are setbacks that we can recover from, and Light Up the Stage is a nice 2-for-1 to start doing that. And that's a great hit. We find the 3rd land drop that we keep cashing in. We got to keep hitting it after we cash it in, and we do. Get to play another Soul-Scar. We got a Lava Spike waiting in the wings. So the opponent has had a really good curve out in terms of interacting with us and keeping pace with us, but we are also keeping pace with the opponent. We're both kind of gassing out here. It's a real interesting game. Witness buys back Coatl. We draw a Lava Dart. Good draw. So let's kick it off with a Lava Spike to the face. And then this was actually a pretty interesting spot, because we could actually just attack, or we could even main phase a Lava Dart to clear out the Witness, and then we could have the Lava Dart flashback for the Coatl. I think that'd be pretty cool. But the real reason to do that is to be really value oriented in terms of making sure our 1-drops don't die to Coatl. And under a lot of circumstances, I think that's fine. But in a different way, it's even more value efficient to just make sure we cast Reveler here. Before anything weird happens, before they maybe untap with non-force of negation counter magic up, before they maybe find something like, I don't know, Rest in Peace. Doesn't seem that likely they'd play Rest in Peace with an Eternal Witness deck, but you do never know, so I decided to just make sure the Reveler resolves. And one of the many, many reasons Lava Dart is great in here is because even if you can't afford to cast it like happened there before you pitch it to Rev, you can still use the back half out of the graveyard, right? So you gotta love that. And so yeah, we just kind of, I feel ahead, even though the opponent's keeping up, so I decided to make sure our Reveler resolves, all that good stuff. Here comes that Coatl. And we do Lava Dart it with the draw trigger on the stack, so they cannot draw into Force of Negation or the second card for Force if they already have one. We could Lightning Bolt the blocker here, but instead, just in case they have another blocker to vial out, I think it's a little bit better to sequence this way. So we allow them to assign blocks, and then if they only have the one blocker, we get to bolt upstairs, and that's just lethal. 3 damage, and the 4 power Prowess threat getting through 4 Exacxes. So, I don't know exactly what the opponent was up to with Time Warp in there. Don't know what else is in their deck besides what they showed us. But look, we battled through Force of Negation protecting Oko. We battled through 3 Coatls because there's 2 in the graveyard and 1 got bought back. We fought through Night of Autumn. And the opponent had a nice curve out, you know. They're on the play. They didn't miss land drops. They had Ether Vial going. What can you say, guys? This deck, Mono Red Prowess, super resilient. Super powerful, very, very explosive with a great goldfish kill. But, you know, all of these setbacks, we can just kind of keep churning through them if our deck is going off, which it did here. So another super fun matchup, another really nice 2-0. This time over Bant Eternal Turns, whatever you want to call it. Somebody I'm sure can inform me a little bit more about this archetype. But anyway, my friends, we move on to round 3. Okay, my friends, here we are. We can't win a die roll, so we're on the draw. But you know, that's not as big a deal as it is with Burn, not at all. And the quality of our opening hands has been high, so that's more important. Looks like we're encountering a little bit of client lag here on this replay, so I'm just going to hit play and hope it's not going to go too fast for us, but certainly Soul-Scar Mage is our turn 1 play. The opponent has opted and played a Colonnade, so blue-white control is the read for now, and think Kiln Fiend is the play here. Certainly want to force them to deal with that if they can, and looks like we're picking pace back up, so let me hit pause here to catch back up, because this is a less obvious turn than play threat, which is what we've done so far, right? So, opponent has played Castle Ardenvale. Good card. Comes in tapped in this case, though, so they're not even representing a hard cast Force of Negation. They're kind of representing, like, Monoleague and Path to Exile, not much more. Maybe a weak Logic Knot from the typical blue-white cards. So, I think kicking it off with Lava Spike here is totally fine. We're going to just kind of push through as much damage as we can this turn, of course, and the sorceries have to be cast main phase, so let's test the waters with Spike. Spike will resolve, follow up with another Forked Bolt for the same idea, and now the opponent panics a little bit. Force of Negation, pitching another Force of Negation. Seems like they maybe thought about doing that to the first one, but then they didn't have it for the then they felt priced into doing it for the second one. Maybe they were hoping we didn't really have anything else. And client behaving a little bit wonky here. Yeah, it's just not showing them. I believe they scooped with our 3rd spell on the stack, which was, you know, you could make a couple arguments either way. But the fact that they forced the second spell, the shock equivalent, basically, means that I don't think they were likely to have removal, so we would be more comfortable shoving all in with Lava Dart here than we would otherwise be. If you weren't sure if you're reading them for removal, Lightning Bolting to the face is safer. But because we have Kiln Fiend on the field, it's going to be lethal either way. Lightning Bolt puts them to 13, and then we're swinging for 14 on top of that. Lava Dart does a little bit more damage with more triggers, but again, we didn't read them for removal, so pretty sure we just bolted facing the opponent scooped here, but either way, turn 3 kill against a control deck. Pretty awesome stuff. Not much more you can say about it. Especially game 1, it's often correct to shove all in, make them have it simply because they're a reactive deck. They are just keeping functional hands with lands and spells for the most part game 1. And of course, their late game is very, very powerful and oppressive. So when you're not sure, I think against a deck like blue-white, you err on the side of shoving all in, and it wasn't even a real choice here. We didn't really have a plan B besides shoving all in. So Kiln Fiend stealing a game here, game 1, before the opponent could really do much about it. So there we go. Let's check out game 2. Alright, my friends, game 2 against blue-white control. So I brought out Kiln Fiend, especially on the draw, but generally post-side, we're unlikely to cheese them out with Kiln Fiend like we did in game 1. And on the draw, it is vulnerable to permission like Mana Leak and Logic Knot, in addition to all the usual removal spells, and, Teferi Bounce can be rough when we're on the draw, so I think Kiln Fiend is pretty bad here, specifically on the draw. We also took out a couple copies of Forked Bolt. I brought in both Shrines of Burning Rage, very, very good against control, and I also decided one Blood Moon for the cheese factor was at least a reasonable thing to try. It's kind of replacing Kiln Fiend, but they're both worse on the draw than they'd be on the play. I don't have enough experience in the matchup to really say one way or another whether we like Blood Moon, but hey, they showed us a lot of utility lands in game 1, and we got another great opening hand. 2 lands, 5 spells, including a 1-drop threat. We've got a sideboard card, we've got some grinding potential. So, opponent making land drops, tossing it back over to us. Client continuing to lag here through the early stages, at least, of this game. And we draw another Monastery Swiftspear, so now we do have some incentives to play Swifty, try to attack, and light up. But instead I went for the Shrine of Burning Rage, and the opponent had a Path to Exile. I think that was an interesting spot. I think you could really justify either one. Part of the reason I went for Shrine is because it is something that, specifically on the draw, I think might be a little bit better position than Swifty. We could be walking into a turn 4 sweeper on curve if we go Swifty, and Shrine of Burning Rage, we don't want them to be able to hardcast a Force of Negation on it, but if they feel priced into 2-for-1ing themselves with Force, that might be better, right? So I think Shrine was kind of a more of a compromise card, whereas playing Swifty and going for light up would have been represented shoving all in a little bit more. But now that they've pathed us, we've got 4 mana for our turn 3. We get to lead off on Swifty. Follow up with Crash Through. Worth noting that when possible, you should try to keep the 3 mana open for Shrine of Burning Rage activation. Whenever you've brought it in, it's because it's very good. You don't want to get caught unable to activate it. That said, in the early stages, you just kind of have to play your normal game plan. You can't hold this up necessarily from the very get-go when you find it on curve, right? Anyway, we're going for the attack. Opponent has Snapcaster light up the stage. Snapcaster Path to Exile. We're the ones who light up the stage, so we Lava Dart the opponent, pivoting to a more value plan B, and light up Resolve. So we are kind of head on resources right now against the opponent. We both virtually have 4 cards in hand, but we have more land drops and a Shrine on the field to their Snapcaster. That said, we do not have a creature. That's our big downfall. They've answered those well. They feel priced into main phasing Cryptic Command to bounce Shrine and draw, which shows you how significant that can be. And then it is back to us. They're leaving the Snapcaster back on defense, really respecting the prospect of a haste threat off the top. We don't draw a haste threat, but we sure draw a threat. It's Bedlam Reveler. We're a little bit ways away from casting it efficiently. We could, play a Crash Through and then cast it, but then we're losing so much value between the Exile Zone and the rest of our hand that there's no way we should do that. Gotta be more patient with the rev than that. So we open up on Shrine, see if it resolves. It's one thing they definitely know about, and all else being equal, you want to play it first so you get more counters on it when you follow up with things like this Lava Spike. So Lava Spike resolves. Light up the stage is the next try. We're just continuing to 2-for-1 the opponent. We hit a Mountain. We obviously play it. We're hitting a lot of good light-ups with like one land and one spell. We'll play a Lava Dart here as well. It's good to cleanly take care of Snapcaster just while we can, especially because that card's about to be exiled. You never ever want to let Lava Dart go to exile, because then you're missing out on the back half too, if you can at all help it. So what an amazing turn for us. We did some damage to face, we drew some more cards, we continued churning through the deck, we got our Shrine back down, it's already on 4 counters, we dug our way to a land drop, it's just amazing. Now, the opponent for the second turn in a row is priced into main phasing in answer to Shrine, which has its own advantages for us, that's for sure. It's good for them that they have the answers for it. If they didn't, they'd probably be in even more trouble, right? But even so, the fact that they're committing to answering it lets us operate on other fronts with impunity. So a land is a pretty good draw here, because we just want to totally empty our hand before the Rev. To that end, we begin with a Bolt to the face, it resolves, we play the Rev, he resolves, oh man, you love to see it. And then we have some more gas off the top, off the Rev. Shrine of Burning Rage is the one to try here. Sadly, the opponent has a Mana Leak. We don't quite have the ability to pay for that, so they do answer something, at least, that we're doing. But then, once again, we use that Lava Dart before it goes to exile. We've got 3 Lava Darts sitting in the bin. You gotta love it. So, opponents really gotta find something great here to stay with us. And to be fair, Teferi, Hero of Dominaria is a great card, played on curve. And we're starting to flood out a bit, pretty hard to be honest, but we've got plenty of answers in hands. The opponent is down to 1, and the fact that Teferi was priced into ticking down, well, that's really good for us. So time to put our Fiery Islets to use. We know the Reveler's there. We flood a little bit more before hitting him, but hey, we do find him. Lightning Bolt goes upstairs, and we ditch these extraneous mountains to the Rev, so they tuck him and we immediately get it back the next turn, because we just dig through the deck that well. Soul-Scar Mage is a very fine play here, and then we're just going to try to Lava Dart Teferi before they get to untap, and we get him. So, lovely. Back to the opponent, 2 cards left. One of them's a land, the other one is Teferi Time Raveler. They'll bounce, they'll draw. Field of Ruin is the find. So they're not representing Cryptic Command here. Too many non-blue sources, right? It is back over to us. We have drawn Lightning Bolt for turn. So we begin with attacking. I'm not really sure what I'm playing around here, and I feel pretty far ahead, so I do decide to just kind of take it easy here. Don't need to get too greedy with the amount of damage I'm forcing through. And once again, we try to just take care of Teferi on our own terms. We're not shoving all in. We've still got a Bolt in the tank. We've still got a Dart in the tank. Yeah, we could maybe have gone for more damage last turn, but I think this is fine as well. Remember, also, we do want to kind of keep the ability to kill a Celestial Colonnade that is trying to block. That might be live as well. You know, forcing the opponent to tap out for Colonnade and then having the answer to it, that could work really well. So we are flooding. It's starting to get a little bit scary here, flooding here at the crucial stage, but the opponent does also seem to be flooded. So here I feel obligated to just go for it. They make a blocker, we Lava Dart the blocker, and they don't even need to see our Lightning Bolt, they just scoop, because we had Lethal on board. Apparently they didn't have removal, so that's going to do it, and there we go. Nice, clean 2-0 win over blue-white control. Shrine of Burning Rage did not stick, but it put in so much work. You saw how quickly it would have represented chunks of, 4, 5, 6 damage just after one turn of taking action. And then, of course, a couple turns unanswered, and it can just dome them for double digits, right? And because of that, again, as I mentioned, they felt priced into main phase Cryptic one turn, followed by main phase Detention Fear the next. Let us really go off with the rest of our deck without their permission able to stop us, or their removal really able to stop us after they dealt with our first couple. So there we go, my friends. I don't know, as I mentioned, not that experienced in the matchup. I don't know how to rate the matchup overall, but I think it is certainly one that is winnable. Let's just put it that way, and we won it here. Good times. Hope you're enjoying this one, my friends, and I will see you in round 4. And we are cruising into the 4th round, my friends, winning a die roll for the first time this league, and we've got a strong hand, but it's a one-lander. Some one-landers are mulligans. I think this one can be a keep in a blind game 1, because we have a couple different ways to enable light up the stage, and we have a threat, we have a great hand otherwise, so light up is a good way to try to creature into light up, a good way to try to get that second land, right? Especially on the play. Opponent will shock in an Overgrown Tomb, so we're thinking BGX or maybe a Shadow variant. Either way, we draw Bedlam Reveler, which is going to be good in the matchup, but it's not the second land, so let's try to sneak in some damage here to trigger light up. Opponent lets us hit, second main phase lighted up, and we don't hit a second land, which is pretty rough. Even so, we're hitting more 1-drops, so we are that much closer to the land. And the opponent did have a Fatal Push, so that's kind of nice for us that they didn't happen to use it. I guess wanted to try to bait us into going more all-in or see what we had for the second main, right? Stomping Ground tapped, then back to us. Still got to draw the second land, and we don't manage to, so we start cantripping from exile with Warlord's Fury, and still nothing, so pretty rough, definitely getting punished for the keep in some pretty significant ways, including this. Liliana of the Veil, very, very good against a mana-screwed opponent, and that would be us. I'm pitching Lava Dart here, even though it's one of the only castable cards from hand, just because we get value off the back end, and I think we're all in on drawing the second land. Like, we have to assume we're going to draw it. We're not going to beat them by only casting 1-drops. So, there we go. The second land, it's been a long time coming, but here we go. So, we could have gone off with Manamorphoses, maybe tried to find like a Monastery Swiftspear would be a pretty good incentive to Manamorphose. We could cleanly take care of Liliana with the help of Lava Spike. However, I did instead decide to try to play Kiln Fiend. I want to try to press the opponent into ticking down with Liliana. I think we have a good chance of going off if we can stop them from attritioning out our hand so hard. And Kiln Fiend is kind of a vulnerable card no matter how you look at it in this matchup, so I just ran it out. Opponent plays a Tarmogoyf, and then they're going to take Liliana up. So we're going to pitch Crash through. We want the reach from Spike to take care of Lily, certainly not going to lose Manamorphose or Reveler. And, we think they might have a Fatal Push based on that sequencing, but all we can do is start digging. Open things up with a Manamorphose. We find the third land. We're going to need that at some point, I suppose. Another Manamorphose. So now our lands are flooding here. We kind of missed the first land drop for too long, and now we're flooded. A little bit rough. But we're going to try to take care of Liliana, at least, with a couple of Lava Spikes before we lose the floated mana. That's all good. And then we've got a 13-power Kiln Fiend coming at the opponent. And amazingly enough, they do just assign a block. I really was reading them for Fatal Push here, but they didn't have it. And Tarmogoyf is a huge problem for us. So even though Kiln Fiend, they're happy enough to block our 13-2 Kiln Fiend, well, I'm pretty happy to trade off with a Tarmogoyf, honestly. They're going to have removal in spades to kill the Fiend, and they didn't there, so lovely. They do have a Scavenging Ooze, extremely good card against us, and we draw light up the stage, so kind of an interesting spot, Normally we just want to jam the Rev, but light up the stage is definitely some pretty good incentive to see what we can see. So to that end, we float a mana, we Lava Dart to trigger Spectacle, and then we cast light up the stage. We find Crash Through and Lava Dart. Good stuff, but nothing that can really take care of the Skoos, blatantly, I guess we can say. So we'll cast the Reveler, see what we can hit. And we hit a Forked Bolt, a couple Soul-Scar Mages. Some pretty reasonable stuff here. And you could definitely have played out a Mage here, but instead I decide to wait and see if the opponent pulls the trigger on the Skoos activation, and they do. So when that happens, we respond with Lava Dart. And we respond with another Lava Dart. So obviously we're missing out on the Prowess damage here, and we're also Stone Raining ourselves, which is bad with all this gas in hand. But hey, taking care of the Skoos, that's why we did that. So we kind of were hoping the opponent went for the activation, and they did. We got to punish him pretty hard, right? But maybe the opponent was always going all in on this Bloodbraid Elf. They just needed to draw the fourth land, right? So they figure we'll activate Skoos and force the trade. And Bloodbraid hits a lightning bolt, pretty fine cascade from our perspective, not that big a deal. We draw Lava Spikes, so go ahead and kick things off by using that Crash Through out of exile, and we draw Lightning Bolt, so these are fine cards. We have an absolute ton of gas in hand. We're just parsing it out a little bit slowly due to the fact that we are choked on mana. We'll begin with the attack, and even though we can take care of the Bloodbraid Elf cleanly enough, could have gotten another point of damage that way too. We Forked Bolt the board, we hit for another. I would much rather play Soul-Scar and set up for a bigger turn coming up. So, opponent with the attack, that's very interesting. Not really what we expect to see, and then they just pass. We draw another Forked Bolt, so again, no shortage of gasoline. Let's open things up with a Lava Spike. See what the opponent's got. They have a Lightning Bolt in response. We cannot beat that, so our Soul-Scar will bite the dust. And so if we go Lightning Bolt to face here, that's lethal. 3 damage plus 5 damage is 8. That's what they're at. And that's viable. But I also feel that if they don't have removal, we are just going to win anyway by playing more occasionally. Like, let's say they don't have a play here, then we just let damage resolve, then we play a Soul-Scar Mage. Especially game 1, if they don't have removal this turn, even if they draw removal for next turn, they're not going to beat us with our hand and with only being able to kill one of our 2 creatures. Therefore, I felt safe playing around removal just like this. So we didn't shove all in, we forced them to trophy us anyway, so we're definitely rewarded for that line. That allows us then, of course, to finally have a little bit more mana. Once more at our disposal, we get to play the Soul-Scar, and then I did just decide to Forked Bolt here, just while they were tapped out, before discard, whatever. Didn't necessarily have to, but I think that's a fine use of a Forked Bolt, which is kind of a weak card in the matchup against some of their better stuff. They have another Bloodbraid Elf, which is very good, into Inquisition, which is also very good. So, yeah, nice turn for the opponent. They still got a card left in hand. We draw Fiery Islet, so let's crack our one on board, and we just find another land. Definitely starting to flood out here. Again, we missed land drops at some crucial turns, then we flooded a bit, then we missed land for a while, then we're flooding again, so it's definitely not been ideal. But we clear the board again, we hit them for 2, put them to 6, kind of in a top deck war. If I was afraid of Liliana ticking up, we would have played maybe Islet over Mountain, but I think Liliana will be priced into ticking down if they find her, so I guess maybe playing around Kolaghan's command still would have been better to run out Islet. Whatever, doesn't matter. We run it out now, and even though it's a little riskier against discard to crack it now, I think we have enough incentives to do exactly that. Sadly, we just keep hitting more lands. That said, Lightning Bolt's a good draw. It's going to let us tangle with a Tarmogoyf in combination with Soul-Scar Mage's ability better than most things do, and of course going upstairs with it is pretty good. So the opponent goes to their turn, and they turn the Goyf sideways. Now, all of the types that we can expect to be in the graveyard, especially at instant speed, are. 5/6, probably not going to grow. So they would need to have 2 burn spells to punish us for doing nothing here. They would need to have like Bolt and K-Command or something like this. I think the odds of that are pretty unlikely, especially given how they've sequenced in the past couple turns. So instead we just take the hit, and it's back to us. We are at 4, and we draw Lava Dart. So hey, we are presenting lethal, we're also facing lethal, so we could sit back and maybe try to tangle with the Goyf, but again, I think it is better to make them have it here. So we attack, no blocks, we go for the Lava Dart to kick things off. Opponent in response tries the Lightning Bolt here, but here's where they get blown out because we have another Bolt in hand, and we also could have just flashed back the Dart as well. So we've got lethal, unless they have another removal spell, a non-damaged based one, which they do not. So I believe that was a mistake from the opponent. I think they were definitely supposed to main phase that Lightning Bolt against our Soul-Scar, basically whenever they had it. Don't know when they drew it, but certainly they've had it over the last turn at least, maybe longer. I think they're supposed to main phase that. They didn't. They tried to go for the higher upside play, and they got pretty well blown out for it, but when mid-range players take the game long, there's more time for either player to make a sequencing error or an error in judgment, and I believe that's what happened here, although it was a very tight game, very well played overall by the opponent, and we did just kind of squeeze over the line there at the end. Pretty intense game. Let's check out game 2. Round 4, Game 2, on the draw, my friends, against Jund. I have sided out 3 Lava Spikes and a Kiln Fiend for Dismember, 2 copies of Shrine of Burning Rage, and once again, shrining 1 of Blood Moon for the cheese factor, rather like we do against Blue-White Control. Don't know overall how good that is, especially in the Renin 6 era, but certainly does have the ability to cheese out a win, so let me know what you think about that. But in any case, that's what we did here. And we don't like to mulligan against Jund. This hand's great if we hit the second land, so another 1-land keep, not ideal, but pretty solid one overall. Opponent with an Inquisition, they're going to start eating away at our creatures, so down goes a Swiftie. We got 2 more creatures where that came from, and we drop Bedlam Reveler, so sure, fair enough. Soul-Scar back to you. Opponent shocking in Stomping Ground to bolt Soul-Scar. Main phase, learning the lesson, I suppose, and we draw another one. So, normally you'd want to play Soul-Scar there, but I did decide to just kind of conceal a little bit of information by running out Swiftie. You know, maybe make the opponent sweat a little bit more too, because we get the damage in. Also, because they're about to hit their 3rd mana, they could play something like Liliana of the Veil. Whatever. Other things, we just at the point where we want to start getting a little bit of guaranteed value out of our stuff. And they got Kolaghan's Command on curve, that's really brutal. So we have to pitch a Lava Dart, at least it's a fine one to pitch if we have to, but we still hate getting 2 for 1. And we continue to miss the land yet again. So Soul-Scar Mage gets run out, at least we've got this parade of threats, right? That's pretty good against Jund, but we do need the second land, my friends. Opponent's curving out, and they got Scooz. And Scoozy is just getting huge on turn 4, becoming a 4/4, eating away at our graveyard, and we miss our trick yet again. But we do get to attack, and due to the unique power of Soul-Scar Mage, we have a very favorable trade with Lightning Bolt involved if the opponent decides to block, and if they don't, which they don't, we get to light up the stage. So it's a way to really make something happen no matter what the circumstance, but sadly we keep missing the second land. A pair of Forked Bolts in exile, not exactly what we wanted to see, and opponents just got all kinds of great stuff going on. Scooz attacking our graveyard, gaining life, getting bigger, Tarmogoyf to wall us off. There's the second land, and even though it's probably coming a little bit too late for us, we are going to try to go off here, start with our Manamorphose, see what we can see, finding another mountain, finding a crash through. Okay, you know, these things are okay, but I do want to just be as value positive as possible, so to that end, we use our cards from exile, we take care of the Goyf, and hey, we smash the opponent for 5, it's pretty good. We still do have the Scooz problem to contend with, and it's still very, very much a sketchy situation, but you can see how we're putting some good stuff together, even against some of the tougher creatures to handle, and even when things have not been going well for us. Speaking of not going well, the opponent, Bloodbraid Elf into Tarmogoyf into Scooz activation. Quite the turn from OP. They turn them all sideways, put us to 1, and it's back to us. We draw Bedlam Reveler. Number 2, not very good, so let's crash through, but we're basically dead, especially because we can't even tap this Fiery Islet for mana. So yeah, I mean, opponent's curve out was great. They had Inquisition, Bolt, Kolaghan's Command into turn 4 Scooz with a bunch of green mana, and they curved out well from there with Bloodbraids and Goyfs. And meanwhile, we were stuck on 1 land. We had some good stuff. We had a lot of gas and a lot of threats. But stuck on 1 land against that kind of start is not going to do it. So we were 3-0, 7-0 going into this game, and then we got rocked by Jund on the play. So hopefully we will do a little bit better when it's our turn to be on the play. Let's go to game 3. All right, my friends, we've got a keeper here on the play, and as you can see from the sideboard, I did decide Blood Moon wasn't worth it. Even though it's better on the play than the draw, we're on the play this time. This just shows you how indecisive I am about the card in the matchup. I think you could go either way. And again, this is why I'm not doing the deep text with sideboarding, because I'm still kind of figuring out corner case decisions on my own. In any case, both players keeping 7. It's worth noting here that I don't think our opponents have really mulliganed this league. I haven't been paying close attention here, and it's been a long time since I played this league, but we've had some good opening hands, but apparently so have the opponents, right, for the most part. So Really seeing decks on both sides of the table here in this league fire, and you love to see that, right? So, starting to hit a few too many land drops for our comfort, but we do have a great turn here. Unopposed, turn 2, Lava Spike you, Smash you for 4, Pass to you. Seems pretty good to me, but we're going to need to keep hitting some gas off the top here. Opponent is pressed into playing Peatland and using it, so that could be good for us in the medium term, but in the short term, they get a really nice Collective Brutality, full escalation, draining us, taking away the only piece of gas in our hand, but again, it's Lava Dart. This is like the 4th time this league that either we or they have discarded a Lava Dart, and we're still going to get some value off the back end. An opponent pitching some decent cards, Ren and 6 is whatever right now with their lack of fetches, and the fact that they're on the draw maybe, but Skoos is a good one we're happy to see go. Just goes to show, that's further confirmation, though, their pitching of Skoos of their mana issues, right? In any case, we got to draw some action off the top. We immediately hit a cantrip. Perfect. That's just what we want to see. And we hit Bedlam Reveler, so we can't quite do anything more with that yet, but of course, very nice card in the matchup. So we hit him for 2. Back to the opponent. Tarmogoyf is the play, extremely good card against us, and I chose not to crack Fiery Islet simply because if we draw something like a Manamorphose, we can cast Bedlam Reveler right now. We have 3 spells in the yard, 4 lands, we're a little bit shy of doing that. So, but the fact that we have another Lava Dart means we're going to get there fairly soon, we hope. So to that end, I do just crack the Islet now, looking for something else proactive to do, and we find it. It's a Swiftie. So we're setting up for a Reveler next turn, perhaps. We'll see how it all goes. We're also playing defense against this card, so opponent will go Collective Brutality again. This time they are not going for the -2/-2, perhaps because they don't think it will succeed against 1 open mana. And in fact, they know it won't if we want to cash in a Lava Dart in the graveyard. Nevertheless, we still will respond, of course, because then their discard mode is going to whiff. So they drain us for 2, and that's about it. I guess they get a Prowess trigger out of our hands on their own terms. And then we draw Light Up the Stage. So once again, Bedlam Reveler, Light Up the Stage, these are the 2 cards that allow us to grind. These are the 2 cards that allow us to keep up in these types of matchups, but sometimes they're a little bit awkward in tandem, so we're still 1 shy of the Rev. So instead, I mean, we get a little bit further away from the Rev by not only cashing in a mountain, but getting a card out of the graveyard, but I think that's our play. So we Lava Dart the opponent, and then we light it up, and what do we find but Soul-Scar Mage and Warlord's Fury. Couple of pretty good cards, couple of pretty good proactive cards here. Fury finds us another Mage, so we're going to play the Mage out from exile, and usually, you know, we want to keep the opponent guessing, we want to go into the attacks with open mana, and then we play the Soul-Scar second main, but it's actually pretty nice here to play it out beforehand, because the opponent is priced into blocking here. We do have lethal if they notice the Lava Dart in the graveyard, and therefore Soul-Scar's debuff is pretty live here, because instead of just bouncing off each other, we shrink the Goyf with the Lava Dart, and then we kill it in combat. And we do 5 to the opponent. We've got a super wide board. They have painful mana, and they're stuck on 2 mana. So it's all pretty great, but they have their 3rd Collective Brutality. So the opponent has had all 3. I'm sure they don't have a 4th Collective Brutality. They've found all 3 Collective Brutalities. That's pretty rough. So they drain us, they kill a Soul-Scar, they pitch some more relatively bad cards, and we draw a reactive card, Dismember. Pretty bad on the face of it, but hey, it's castable. We're down to 1 land, so it's castable off 1 land. That's very important, and it can let us beat a Tarmogoyf or another 2-drop, right? So it's kind of a high variance card at this particular stage, and the opponent has the 3rd land into the 2-for-1 Maelstrom Pulse. Oh no, this is getting really hairy, my friends, but they are down to 1 card in hand. We draw these 2, we draw these 2. We draw the 2nd mountain, so we're back up to operational, but we're still pretty far away from Bedlam Reveler, so all we do is chip in for 1. Opponent will bolt us main phase, taking care of our threat, and then passing. We draw Shrine of Burning Rage. This really should be sufficient to finish him off. if they don't have an answer for it, and if we can draw the third land. Remember, this is 3 to activate, but it is basically another threat at this stage of the game, and one that might be harder for them to answer. They draw Nurturing Peatland for a turn, they're going to crack it, and they're going to scoop it up. So it seemed like we were destined, when we drew that early Bedlam Reveler, to go on the Reveler plan. But we were just a little bit shy of making it happen, and then we committed to a different plan. When we used a Lava Dart and a land, getting us 2 mana further away from Reveler because we exiled Dart from our graveyard, and we lost a land. To enable Light Up the Stage, we had committed to a different route. Now, that doesn't mean you'll never cast Reveler. Of course, if we had found like a Manamorphose here, we would have been able to cast Reveler like right away, instead of this Dismember, once we hit the second land, that is. But as you can see, having the variety of angle of attacks is really, really awesome. So we had the ability to just rip a Lava Spike or a Lightning Bolt and dome them and kill them. We had the ability to rip a 1-drop and force them to answer it, or it will kill them. We also had the ability to rip Shrine of Burning Rage, and that will kill them if we draw the third land. On top of all that, we are still working toward the Bedlam Reveler, which is a really hard card for Jund to beat, especially when they're this far behind on life totals. So, I think Jund is kind of a tough matchup. It's just, their mana's just a lot more painful than that of Rock, so I think Rock is tougher. But Jund has a lot of stuff. Hey, Jund has more 1-mana removal in the form of Lightning Bolt. That can be very good against us if seen sufficiently early. So that was a really interesting game, but guys, we beat Jund, and we beat them through triple collective brutality and some awkwardness on our end, admittedly to complement the awkwardness on their end. So I thought this was a really interesting little series, and we take home the win. So we are 4-0 going into the 5th and final round. Okay, my friends, here on the draw with another one-lander. You know, it's another one-lander that's more or less fine just because the upsides of hitting the second land are so high with Kiln Fiend and double Manamorphose in a blind game 1 plus an otherwise reasonable hand. So we do keep it. Opponent goes Mulligan to 6, Gemstone Mine, Once Upon a Time for Sakura Tribe Scout, then plays the Tribe Scout, so we are against Amulet Titan. We draw Lava Dart, so I decide to put off my clock by a turn to slow down their board. I think that's generally worth it when you have a really explosive potential like an unchecked Tribe Scout in this deck. Sadly for us, they have another Tribe Scout and a bounce land. So since we started off with that plan, I feel obligated to kind of keep committing to it. And Forked Bolt gets to tag them for 1, but sadly we have missed the second land. Really would have loved to go Swifty, of course, into Forked Bolt. Back to us, once again missing the land drop, so we smash him for 1. Back to the opponent, kind of not really doing our thing yet. We do hit a second land. That's a beautiful thing. But now at this point, we're kind of committed to playing catch-up for all of the missed explosive potential. And the way to do that, I think, is to just chip for 1 here and play Kiln Fiend and try to kill them next turn. We also have more resilience to engineered explosives this way, right? By diversifying our threats along the curve. So back to the opponent, and admittedly, we have slowed them down by killing these Tribe Scouts, and make no mistake, they're just kind of playing land drops. They haven't really done anything else. Whereas if they had a Tribe Scout or 2 completely unchecked, obviously different story. So they're going to go transmute Talaria West, go get a Pact of Negation. So it's back to us. And yeah, maybe this was a little bit of a misplay. I just kind of said, hey, they have a Pact of Negation. If we lead on Manamorphose, they definitely packed it, and there goes our turn. Maybe that would actually have been fine, though, right? Because what is this? Pay 5? Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They barely have double blue. They barely have enough to play for it. Then what do they do with the rest of their turn? You know, so maybe we should have made them have it. But either way, my first thought was, they have Pact, let's play Fury instead. And then I was kind of like, well, as soon as I cast it, maybe I should actually have just played the Manamorphose and made them Pact us, because it might be more dangerous if they don't, right? Or if they decide not to, then we would have an even better turn. So we were kind of left in this limbo where we're hitting for a ton, but we also didn't force them to Pact. So I think that might have been suboptimal from me. They make a land drop, they Summoner's Pact for Primeval Titan, and then they'll cast the big guy. No Amulet of Vigor, so we're not going to die from it, but obviously still scary. As expected, they make the 0/1 blocker, and then they gain 2 life from Radiant Fountain, so some good value off the lands. And then we draw a 3rd land, and now it's time to just go for the Manamorphose. And they don't pact this. I guess maybe they can't pay for both packs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, not quite. So they kind of cannot pact of negation here. And my client is lagging a bit on the old Manamorphose, but it does resolve. We get to do another one, and we're just going off here. And Forked Bolt, taking care of the board. We've got lethal 6 ways from Sunday. We bolt upstairs. We've still got Lava Dart in the tank, but they are just dead on board basically right about now, so the opponent will scoop it up. And yeah, there we go. So again, maybe it would have been optimal to Manamorphose last turn, force them to pact, especially because we had another Manamorphose in the tank. Either way, my friends, I think that killing the early Tribe Scouts, and then also perhaps most crucially deciding to play Kiln Fiend on curve rather than, get value out of the Swifty while we had more or less a green light to do so. I think that's really what got us there, because the sheer overpowering damage of Kiln Fiend is really what can basically guarantee a kill with most sequences, right? As long as we can get it through. So, there we go. Taking game 1 off Amulet Titan feels real good, especially because they were on the play, especially because we missed our 2nd land drop for so long. Feels great. Okay, everybody, we are on the draw here. Round 5, Game 2, I have sided in 2 copies of Blood Moon for obvious reasons, and 2 copies of Abrade to kill their early ramp pieces, notably Sakura Tribe Scout and namesake card Amulet of Vigor, but there are other targets for it as well, including Azusa. Sometimes it's fine to hit her with that, and Coalition Relic, Engineered Explosives, things like this. So Abrade's got a lot of targets. Even though it doesn't deal with their payoffs, I think the idea is to race them while stopping them from getting to the payoff, right? So that's how I sided. We trimmed around the edges a couple spikes, a Light Up, and a Warlord's Fury make way. In some matchups, I do like to just take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and that's kind of what I opted for here. Opponent mulliganed again, and then they have a Tribe Scout on the play. So we're just going to bolt it and hope that does enough to slow them down. We do have a Kiln Fiend Blood Moon hand, seems pretty good to me. And we're drawing Lava Spike, sure. Kiln Fiend it is. Back to the opponent, they will cast an Ancient Stirrings, finding Castle Garenbrig. And then they will go EE on 2. So, pretty interesting spot here. Obvious choice is to play Blood Moon. But if we don't, we can have an extremely explosive turn and get an absolute ton of damage across before the opponent gets to untap with EE. And they already have a forest. That's the main reason, despite the fact that Kiln Fiend would die and we would be kind of starting over by playing Blood Moon. If they didn't have a basic forest, I still would have jammed it anyway. But because they do, I'm worried that they have a disenchant style effect, and then they get to have their cake and eat it too. They don't take a huge hit here, and they still get to beat the Blood Moon. So, definitely a judgment call, definitely a really interesting one. But we go for the Lava Spike, and then of course getting to the Spectacle for Light Up is definitely sweet. Abrade and Mountain, though, not particularly good finds. And then we just go Kiln Fiend here. And we do hit them for 10, plus we bolted face a couple times, so 15 points of damage, pretty sweet. Opponent goes Tribe Scout into Radiant Fountain, holding up EE, definitely a pretty sweet turn. So we'll crash through, kind of finding nothing, kind of finding a whole lot of nothing. So we're going to attack here, we're going to see if they crack EE, try to force them to, of course they're just going to. And then, once again, I do not think that Blood Moon is the way to go here, or I did not at the time, simply because you gotta imagine that an unchecked Sakura Tribe Scout can still make things happen pretty well, whether it be by floating green and then bouncing it and doing it again, something like this. You just don't know. I kind of thought, let's keep controlling the board, let's make them have something. Again, the presence of the forest has me leery for a naturalized style effect. I don't know if this was correct, though, because they have Summoner's Pact, and then they go get the Primeval Titan. Now here, I hope that they do not get another basic forest. We still have that out where Blood Moon is going to be really, really good. And if they don't get another basic forest, if they get utility lands, we might still just win the game here off the Pact. Sadly, we don't. Opponent very cannily playing around Blood Moon, even though they have reason to believe we would have jammed it if we had it. So, a little bit too late, maybe the Blood Moon comes down. Maybe I just overthought this. Maybe I was just thinking, you know, maybe we're just supposed to jam the Blood Moon almost no matter what, because it is that good. But in any case, opponent finds an Amulet of Vigor, so that's very, very punishing. Blood Moon prevents it from being all that bad, but of course this is still pretty awful. Opponent just making more land drops, and then they packed for a Reclamation Sage. So look, I guess they could have packed for the Sage probably the whole time. I don't know if we're beating the curve out anyway. Still might have been better, of course, to Blood Moon a turn, or maybe even 2 turns before we did. I kind of like going on the Kiln Fiend plan like we did. You know, I would have to go back and do the math, but it's possible that if we had found a Lava Dart off of the light up, we might even have had lethal. I don't know. In any case, we didn't get there so far, and we're sure not going to get there with a bunch of 1/1s. We'll make them play it out here, but we kind of ran out of gas here, and the opponent pays for the Pact. They get to do all kinds of fun stuff here with Amulet, and then they went and found Tutored for and Engineered Explosives, and that was enough for me to scoop, because that's just going to be straight up lethal, even without more Titan shenanigans. So again, possible that I missed the trick on Blood Moon by abrading the second chance I had. Again, I think shoving in on Kiln Fiend is justifiable not to play the Moon, but maybe even that should be called into question. Maybe we should just jam Blood Moon no matter what, and then see what happens, even in the face of a basic forest. I don't know. This was one of my first times playing against Amulet Titan with the deck, so in any case, we made the opponent have a lot of stuff to keep up with us. They had the EE to take care of Fiend, they had another EE to clean us up, they had the packs, they had the Titan relatively early, they had all kinds of stuff, so what are you going to do? It was a close one. I think we very, very nearly had them. The draws went our way a little bit more, we would have gotten there, but instead, we're going to go to Game 3. It's coming down to the wire, my friends. Super intense, very exciting stuff, and we are on the play, which is great, and we've got a hand that you can't really throw back. We don't have the sideboard cards, but we've just got a strong hand with 4 1-drops and some lands and some redraws, right? So let's keep it. The opponent, unfortunately, will keep 7 as well. Soul-Scar Mage, pass to you. They go Tribe Scout off of Forest and then pass. So, time for a good old Monastery Swiftspear into a Forked Bolt, taking care of the Scout, tagging the opponent for 1, then we swing for 4. It's a really nice start. Opponent on those basic lands and those Amulets of Vigor, they go double Amulet of Vigor. Very, very scary, especially because we already took care of 1 ramp piece. Kind of the only thing our hand doesn't do is interfere with their artifacts. The other thing our hand doesn't do is play Blood Moon, but it wouldn't even be great here. In any case, we draw another land, not very good, so let's crash through, hoping for some real gas off the top, and we hit it. It's Manamorphose. That's literally our best draw. We want to just keep chaining those, and we hit another one, so it's super exciting here. Manamorphose again, making double red, and then we peter out with the hit of a mountain. But look, we get to Lava Dart the opponent, we get to Lava Dart flashback. The opponent's at 13, we smash in for 12. If that mountain had been any other kind of damage, another Swifty or more gas, then we would have had the turn 3 kill. Instead, we just put them to 1. We're really making them have it. And they have a bounce land. That's the fear. So they start us off with a bounce land. What can they do off of it? They've got 5 mana, but they play Azusa. This is the nightmare. Azusa backed up by double Amulet of Vigor. But we still need them. They still need to have a payoff. They still need to have something to do with all this mana. And they've got to have it right here, right now. So opponent floats, they do their tricks, they make a ton of mana. And wouldn't you know it, they just have Primeval Titan. So Primeval Titan plus double Amulet of Vigor. Sad to say, it is lethal because they get to make all the excess mana requisite to not only play the Titan, but give it haste, and then they tutor again for double strike, and they're just going to hit us for 20. So we literally could not have been any closer to a 5-0. We put the opponent to 1 on turn 3, and then they killed us on their turn 3. Ooh! And that's our only match loss in the league. So definitely, again, literally could not possibly be any closer than that, but Amulet Titan stealing the glory out from underneath us, stealing the 5-0. But hey, you know what? We really made them have it. We really made them have a very, very strong kill. And make no mistake, getting the literal kill on turn 3 after getting your turn 1 ramp piece removed, yeah, that's kind of a nut draw from Titan. So we had a bit of a nut draw of our own, but sadly it was just that 1 damage shy of getting there. But what an epic match to finish up a really fun. All right, my friends, so that was our 4-1, very, very nearly 5-0, still a great success of a league, and this was with the list that, as I said at the beginning, I have kind of been playing for the first month and a half or so. After some initial testing, this is kind of what I settled on. I'm going to release a second Prowess Replay League video in the immediate term after this one comes out, so by the time you're watching this, the other one may already be out, and let's take a look at the changes that I'm making to that. I'm just moving away from 1 Shrine of Burning Rage sometimes because they're awkward in multiples, trying out a Pithing Needle, cutting an Abrade in favor of a Dismember just seems a little bit necessary against the proliferation of shadow decks, and the still reasonable presence of other mid-range decks to have that second Dismember. Otherwise, it's kind of more of the same. I don't believe we made any other changes. Down to 2 Warlords. Fury is that different from the old one? Yes, this one had 3, so a little bit of a minor tweak in the main deck as well. Yes, that's right. The other change in the second league I'll show you in the next video is we are just playing the 4th Bedlam Reveler. I've avoided this for a little while just because a lot of my clunkier progressions have involved double Reveler in some way, shape, or form, whether it be double Rotting in Hand or finding them too often early off of Light Up the Stages, especially if I already have one in hand. That said, that might just be the price of doing business. It is the card you most want to draw in a fair amount of matchups, right? So in my testing for the league you'll see next, and then in some more leagues to follow, Bedlam Reveler number 4 did come into the fold as well. So otherwise, I really like what we're doing with the core. Again, I'm doing things a lot of people are not doing. I'm playing a 1 of Kiln Fiend. I'm playing Forked Bolt over other upgraded shock alternatives, and it's been working for me so far, my friends. So let me know what you think about the list, let me know what you thought about the gameplay, and remember, if you want to see more Prowess content, I would love to bring you more. If the demand is there, I'm going to bring it. If the demand is kind of lukewarm, I'll continue doing replays every now and then, but if the demand is higher, I'll play some live stuff for you too, like I have in the past. So let me know about that, guys. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you, as always, to all Patreon supporters who do make this content possible. Link to that is in the description below. It really makes a huge difference in my life, really helps me out. Can't thank you enough. And speaking of links in the description below, if you're looking for those tokens, if you're looking for those beautiful playmats, Grimflayer MTG is your discount code for 10% off on BrianPalmerArt.com. Thank you in advance for anybody looking into that, and thanks again for watching. I will see you in the comments section. Stay tuned to the channel. Please subscribe if you have not already done so. More Prowess gameplay, more BGX gameplay, spoilers, analysis. It's all here, guys. So thanks again, and I will talk to you soon. Hope everybody out there has a wonderful night.